Intelligence and justice should be apolitical, so let's hear from the other side of the aisle. Jim Himes is the ranking member on House Intel, and he's been someone many Republicans work closely with on national security issues. Welcome, ranking member. Some folks are arguing a warrant should be required to use incidental collection under 702. In practicality, what does that really mean?
Yeah, it's a great question, Trey, and you probably put your finger on maybe the most controversial aspect of the renewal of the FISA 702 authorities, whereby the Department of Justice, the FBI in particular, presents requests to U.S. companies for information exclusively on non-U.S. people. Now, here's where it gets complicated. Non-U.S. people, targets of 702, do send texts and do send emails to Americans. And the truth is that over the years, the FBI in particular had done too many of those queries and hadn't been as strict as they should be about doing it. But the reason it's important, Trey, and I think you know this as a former prosecutor and as somebody very familiar with the program, the reason the FBI may do what's known as a U.S. person query, that is to say, does the database contain a text or an email that was sent to a U.S. person? Because if that Pakistani terrorist all of a sudden is sending texts to 3 people in St. Louis, let's just say, the FBI has an interest in knowing why that was. And you want to protect the privacy of those individuals, but by definition, the FBI in that moment doesn't know that there is probable cause to believe that those 3 individuals in St. Louis have committed a crime. So there's a logical problem with saying that the FBI should go to a judge and ask for a warrant because, again, they're just looking for connections, whether there's planning of a terrorist attack going on. They actually couldn't in that moment show probable cause. But I would argue, and I think this is a fairly universal sensation, that if a known terrorist target is communicating with Americans, at a minimum we ought to say, are they just saying happy birthday to a cousin, or are they actually planning an attack?
Yeah, just so our viewers know, probable cause is the same standard for a search warrant as it is for an arrest. So if you think you have enough to go search, you actually have enough for an arrest. It's in practicality a challenge for law enforcement, particularly when they're talking about preventing crime, not investigating it. Let me ask you about this, Congressman. I like Tulsi Gabbard. She has been a longtime friend of mine. I also believe Edward Snowden is a traitor who did significant damage to our country, and he fled to Russia, and he faces espionage charges. Do you think he damaged our country, and was there another way for him to air his grievances, like coming to your committee, for example?
That's exactly right, Trey. And it's not that I think that he damaged the national security of this country. As the ranking member of the Intelligence Committee, and I remember when you were on the committee too, so you saw some of this stuff. I know that he damaged the national security of the United States. I know that he exposed programs that keep us safe. I know that he probably put individuals at risk. And so, yes, he is a traitor. And what was odd to me about the Tulsi Gabbard testimony was that this was a whole new Tulsi Gabbard. All of a sudden, she wasn't a friend of Edward Snowden. All of a sudden, she supported the 702 FISA authority. That raises certain concerns with me. But yeah, you said it exactly right. A whistleblower has any number of routes that whistleblower can go if they believe that a crime is being committed or other untoward activity. There's inside the chain of command reporting. There are inspector generals you can go to. And as you point out, perhaps as a last resort, but it's always an option, you can come to the congressional committees and say, I am not comfortable with this stuff. That is not what he did. He blew those secrets. He followed that up by going to China, followed that up by going to Russia. So, look, there is no way to look at what Edward Snowden did and say that he did it absolutely wrong in a way that damaged our national security.
So for everyone else, you got Rick Crawford, who was on last week. You got Jim Himes, who's on this week. That's where you should go. Not China, not Russia, not our adversaries. Jim Himes from the great state of Connecticut, thank you for joining us on a Sunday night.
Thank you, Trey. Take care.